Today we're going to look at unit rates, ratios, and proportions. This is a 2-day lesson, and it's going to begin with the basic idea behind the information. Then later on we'll look at some more advanced questions. Be sure again to practice this skill because we are 1 week away from finishing up this unit, which means your test is right around the corner. First, let's look at unit rates. When we use unit rate analysis on a regular basis, when we find the unit rate of an item, we are finding the cost per unit. In terms of its application, we always like to compare prices. If you're looking at two things from two different stores, we like to compare the price. We like to see who's charging better, and that is pretty much what your unit rate analysis is. The best deal is typically the item with the lowest cost per unit. So if you consider the following problems, it says you have the option of purchasing 8 ounces of dressing for $1.35 or 12 ounces for $2.16. It wants to know which one's the best buy. Our question is usually what is the cost per ounce. So you're talking cost per ounce, which means that you're simply going to take the cost and divide it by the number of ounces. And so for the first one, you have 8 ounces for $1.35, which means we're going to do $1.35 divided by 8. And it's that plain and simple. You just do the cost, which is $1.35, divided by the number of ounces, which gives us 16.8. or 0.16, we'll just write the decimal, 0.16875. The second one is 12 ounces for $2.16. So if I want the unit cost, I do $2.16 divided by 12, and I get 0.18. And so which one is the best buy? Again, would you rather spend 18 cents per ounce or 16 cents per ounce? It would be the 8 ounces is the best buy because that is the one that gives me the lower price per ounce. So it's a very straightforward question. You just have to make sure you remember that for unit price, you're looking at dollars per ounce. You want the cost per ounce or the cost per person or the cost per whatever typically is what you're talking about there. It says you have the option of purchasing 16 candy bars for $11.50 or 20 candy bars for $13.90. Again, before you purchase, you probably want to think which one is the best buy, because if you're buying a lot, you eventually do save money. So again, cost per whatever it is here, you have $11.50 for 16. So again, you do $11.50 divided by 16 to see what that number is, and it's 0.71875. And then you're looking at 20 candy bars for $13.90. So here we do the cost divided by what we're buying. So $13.90 divided by 20, which is 0.695. And so if they want to know which one is the best buy, remember the best buy is usually the one that saves you the most money, doesn't cost as much. So you're talking about this one, which means the 20 candy bars is the best deal. And so that's the first thing you're talking about. Second thing we're going to talk about in this section is ratios and proportions. Ratio is just a fraction. Let me say that again. A ratio is a fraction. It's a fraction. That's all it is. When they say what is a ratio, just say that a ratio is a fraction. The difference between a fraction and a ratio is that a ratio is a fraction that connects two related numbers. Anytime you find two numbers that are related, you are able to represent it as a fraction. Think about our conversion sentences where we learned that 1 foot is 12 inches. That is a ratio, 1 over 12, or we did 12 over 1. So they were just fractions. Consider the following situations and we'll turn these into ratios. If it took 17 days to earn $300 at a fundraiser, these two numbers are related because it obviously took me this long to earn that much, which means I could put 17 over 300, or I could put 300 over 17. Again, it's kind of like the unit conversions we just did. You can just make two different fractions out of those, but we'll talk about how we use those in a second. But those two numbers are related, so these are the two fractions that we could cause or bring out from those two numbers. Joanna scores 8 goals every 3 games. Again, if it takes her this long to score that many, or this long to score that many goals, you could put it down as 8 over 3, or you could put it down as 3 over 8. That's it. That's what a ratio is. It typically takes 45 minutes to prepare 4 videos. Again, these numbers are directly related. So you would put 45 over 4, or you would put 4 over 45, and that would be what you're looking at. Okay? Now, it's not about the ratio so much as it is the proportions. A proportion itself is the result of setting two ratios equal. Proportions are used to solve realistic situations, and that's why we need the ratios. We eventually get the application of proportions after we consider how to solve them. That'll be tomorrow. Proportions themselves are set up in a general form. This is something that you don't need to memorize, but whenever you get into talk to a mathematician, a person who does math all the time, they're going to say these words, but what they do is they set it up in a general form based off of what we call means, which I'll represent with an M, and extremes, which we call E. They're set up as follows, where they have M over E equals E over M, and you want to notice that the means and the extremes are diagonal. So the M's are diagonal from each other and the E's are diagonal from each other. And the person who did this pretty much made a rule that said if you want to solve a proportion, we use the fact that the product, which means we multiply the means, and set it equal to the product, which means we multiply the extremes. And so what that means is that M times M has to equal E times E. Now, not exactly that way, but this times that has to equal this times that. And that's what we are going to use as we learn how to do proportions. It's called cross multiplying. That's what they use to do any kind of time you have a fraction equal to a fraction. Now, we learn how to eliminate fractions, but it doesn't always work, and it's actually easier if you have a fraction equal to a fraction, which we call a proportion, to just do it that way. And so what you will do is you will say 7 times 16 should equal X times 14. And today I need those of you who like to take shortcuts to not do that, because at least show this. It doesn't take that much work to do, but this is the safest way to get all of them right. But 7 times 16 equals X times 14, which means now we do 7 times 16, which is 112, equals, this turns into 14x, because remember the number goes first. From there we divide by 14, and we get the answer of 8 equaling my x. It's that easy. We've already seen the toughest type of solving that you're going to see. Now we're starting to apply it a little bit before they add anything else to your solving toolkit. But for right now, like I said, you just have to make sure you understand if it's a fraction equal to a fraction, what we cross multiply and set the two things equal. So on B, first I will say as 6 multiplies by 65, and it should equal whatever 13 times x is. Then I take my calculator, do 6 times 65, which is 390. 13 times x is 13x. Then I divide both sides by 13, and I get 30 as my answer for x. So again, notice that the solving on this is easy in comparison to what we started out with. But that's how algebra is. Again, it teaches you how to do something, then we are using the application of solving to solve these proportions. C, 70 times x should be the same as 5 times 10. This turns into 70x. This turns into 50. I want to get rid of the 70. These two cancel out. And let me show you something about how to reduce a fraction, because some of you are missing questions because you're not reducing fractions. So get your calculator now. That is, if you want to learn how to do it, so I can show you how to reduce a fraction. First thing you do is you type the fraction in. So 50 divided by 70. And you notice that we get a decimal. But as I've told you on your quizzes, decimals are not allowed as an answer on my quizzes, so we need to turn this into a fraction. What we will do is hit the math key. Think about what class you're in. You're in math class. And this arrow, anytime you see a calculator with an arrow, it means you are converting it. And we are going to convert whatever we have into a frac, which is a fraction. Hit enter to select it, and then enter to actually do it. And you see that this reduces to be 5 over 7. Very nice, very easy. For example, take a moment with me and do 24 divided by, 16. Of course, you get a decimal. But what we can do if we don't like that decimal, if we want to convert it into a fraction, is we hit math, enter, enter. I mean, pretty much that's the pattern. You hit math, enter, enter, and it goes on through. If I had 90 over 100, it gives me a decimal. I hit math, enter, enter. It turns it into 9/10. So anytime you have a fraction in a question that gives you a decimal, if you divide it, simply hit math, enter, enter, and it will give you your answer. So here we have 12 times x equaling to 14 times 4. This turns into 12x equals whatever 14 times 4 is, which is 56. X is attached to 12, so I have to divide by 12. X comes down. Again, if I do 56 divided by 12, I get a decimal. But your teacher just taught you that if you get a decimal, we can convert that into a fraction by simply hitting math, enter, enter, and you get the answer of 14 over 3. And so that's really what it's all about today, is just kind of add that to your understanding. I am going to be teaching you how to use this calculator more and more. Just make sure that whenever I teach you something that you practice it a little bit, because it's not going to help you when we get to the higher level of me teaching you how to do stuff and you don't even understand the basics. So again, use that to your advantage. Start using it on a regular basis so you learn how to do it. Focus on learning the process today. This work is not very difficult, but it is important that we do not allow the new process that we are learning to mess up what we already know. Be sure you're asking for help when you need it. Again, the stuff that is on this sheet of paper is new and old. Make sure you get as much as you can on that. But for right now, make sure you're going to the Math XL to do the whatever questions I have lined up for you. Get your 100% and then show me that, and then I'll give you your worksheet. So good luck today.